A very, very warm welcome to my podcast, brought to you by Michael Glanville Executive Coaching. And I've got the absolute privilege of being here with this guy today, Barry Eustance from the Success consultancy. Barry's got an incredibly varied career, but most interesting, I suppose, certainly from the start of this podcast point of view, is he used to be a pilot for Caledonian Airways and for Virgin, but you've done loads and loads of other stuff in your career. So tell us where it started.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Delighted to be here.
You're welcome.
And for those who are interested, we're on a lovely sailing boat at Hamble, which is a particular passion of both of us. So it started in December 1962 on my 5th birthday, flying back from Bahrain. My parents lived in Bahrain, went on the flight deck as I was a card-carrying member of the Junior Jet Club, and the captain put me in the seat and said to me, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I said, "I want to do what you do, sir, and I want to be a pilot." So that was it. And from that point onwards, I focused everything on doing exactly that. And funny enough, we're currently in Hamble. The intention was to come to the College of Air Training at Hamble, which didn't happen for reasons I could explain but won't bore you with. But it was basically because it was closing. They were stopping taking intakes at about the time that I was old enough to go to Hamble. And so that was it. So I did the same courses as people who had gone to Hamble. I got my medical done. I did a flying scholarship with the Royal Air Force. So at 17, I had my pilot's license before my driving license, and I did gliding and international air cadet exchange. So I was very focused on aviation. And then Hamble were not taking further intakes. I was on the University of London Air Squadron because I went and did electronics with physics and French, none of which I understood. But the big rub there was that I was able to join the University Air Squadron and fly airplanes in the Bulldog out of Abingdon. And that kind of delayed the process of going to Hamble. So that was that. And that was fine. And I then followed a itinerant career in aviation, as most people do, and ended up flying as a captain with Virgin Atlantic after a series of iterations. I was with Virgin for 25 years, and I was flying long haul on the 330, Airbus 330, Airbus 340, 300, Airbus 340, 600. So got to see quite a lot of the world.
Wow, amazing. What would you say was the best place you've ever been to as a pilot?
It's very difficult. We loved Shanghai. Fantastic. It was like a big Hong Kong. But we went to such interesting places like Johannesburg, Los Angeles, New York, Boston, Chicago, Miami, etc., etc. So there was a lot to. But Shanghai, I think, stands out, particularly in the late 90s when we first started going there. But the flight deck was the place that I had most pleasure. Really, it was a great place to be. The greatest view in the world, really.
The greatest view in the world. You heard it here first. That's the view of a pilot. Other pilots listening may or may not agree. Okay, so what Success Consultancy does now is a lot of leadership development, a lot of work in aviation, but in other markets. But one of the things that's always fascinated me is, as a pilot on particularly a big jet, you are managing not just the plane, the crew, the systems. There's a huge amount of leadership in that and leadership development. What made you think actually that this is where the next stage of my career I want it to go? Was it those lessons or?
Yeah, I mean, it was during my time with the Virgin. And preceding Virgin, I'd got a commercial background, as in commercial business background in the aviation industry. So the lessons from that, I was chairman of the union, pilots union within Virgin when I was there. We did a very major pay deal round about the early 2000s, and that was pretty well industry leading for a long. Well, it was the biggest deal basically in percentage terms in the preceding or succeeding 20 years, and the processes that we used during that were very much when I decided, having stopped flying due to great age, and so it was time to stop. So I folded my wings, and you either go and play golf, and I was really lousy and still am at golf, or I took the view, taking the nautical metaphor, that I thought I had another go round the buoys before departing this mortal coil. So I thought, it would be desirable, from my perspective, to give something back. So I did a master's in professional consulting with the Chartered Management Institute. I did a Cotter Advanced Change Leadership Certification, which came out of suddenly I realized the methodologies for change, but more importantly, that Cotter process was almost exactly, and we didn't know at the time, exactly what we'd used during the pay deal. And so we got a small group of a guiding coalition. We created a strategic vision, and one that people could really hook into and get emotionally involved with. We got a volunteer army together, and we removed barriers. We celebrated wins. We maintained the momentum all the way to the finish line and beyond. And it was kind of the Cotter process. And so it all resonated with me. And I actually, at that stage, wasn't planning to be involved in aviation consulting, having been in the industry for sort of 50 odd years. My focus was to bring the experiences I had to the non-aviation part of it. And as we'll explain in a minute, that's that. As you know, no plan. I'm not allowed to use strategy because Mark Blackwell of Acaro says that strategy is not a plan, or a plan is not a strategy. But no plan survives the first encounter with the enemy. And so there are some aviation elements coming in. And I ended up dealing with contributions to Bloomberg and the BBC, and appeared in documentaries, providing operational experience and perspectives, particularly when there are major incidents. And so that's kind of how the consultancy side of my life emerged. And it was the leadership lessons were, leadership is about teamwork. It's about, the domain of leaders is the future. It's about change. And so if you're not good at change and you don't understand the processes that will facilitate change, buy-in, as we've discussed, Michael, in our podcast that we did, then you're pretty well dead in the water, picking up the nautical metaphor again. So it's all of that is of real interest, because if you look around industry, as you know, there are lots of people who don't understand that because it's not been part of their training and their experience. And so being able to provide that in a trusted advisory way, to partner with companies and organizations to facilitate change, even if they're a startup or an early stage company, understanding the importance of using the huge asset base that you've got in your people is hopefully the message that we convey.
Fantastic. And so you said you were a pilot or working in the aviation industry for 50 years.
Yeah.
So you will have seen a significant amount of change in that time, not just technological change in advancements in aircraft technology and so on and so forth, but obviously in the culture of people, both as passengers on the planes, but also the culture of people working in different teams. What would you say was the biggest, probably most challenging cultural change you saw in your career, and any lessons, I suppose, you could give viewers from that?
Yeah, I mean, when in the early days, in the 60s, 70s, you had this sort of Atlantic Baron mentality where you had the big boss on the airplane, and it was very much a very steep cross-cockpit authority gradient, which is actually the topic of a podcast that's going out tomorrow. And that gradient flattened out. And so after a couple of pretty high-profile incidents, Tenerife North, where there was a big incident, the Papa India crash at Staines, there was another crash going to Tenerife where they flew into high ground, quite unnecessarily, but usually that is the case. There was a thing called crew resource management was brought in, CRM. And that was about the interaction across the cockpit, but also along the length of the aircraft. In other words, how we integrated with the crew and so forth. And latterly, crew came into the simulator. We trained together. We worked as a team on and off the aircraft. And remember, in a big airline, you might never see the same crew twice.
Yeah.
So when you come, you have standard operating procedures. You have a clear understanding of the stress arousal curve, about cross cockpit authority gradients, about cultural differences, because we flew with local crews from India, from China, from Hong Kong, from Nigeria. And so it was all of that dynamic, and it was about the team. And whenever we had an incident, and incidents do occur on airplanes, they're complex machines, we would always engage the team to problem solve and help us deliver the best result for all of us.
So huge lessons around communication, really, and how teams communicate with each other.
Yeah.
How they can work best together in a crisis, I suppose, or in difficult circumstances. So you talked there about the cultural differences of people from different nationalities or different countries working together. What would you say was, if you've had a leader watching the podcast thinking, well, actually, we're going international now, what would be a sort of lesson, a toolbox, I suppose, that might help them think about how they approach that?
Yeah, well, it's not just internationally, is it? I mean, we are a multicultural society.
Absolutely.
We have multiple religions, and it's basically respecting the huge strengths that come from that diversity. If you look at how diversity has made us as the human race so much richer culturally and commercially, the respecting that, not living in a silo, but actually understanding that there are cultural differences and there are ways of understanding. It's about taking the time to listen. The most powerful management tool, in my view, are the ears. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The ears and the eyes, use them and use this less, which of course I should do as well. But it's the ears and the eyes and the understanding and also the touch, being prepared to reach out to people in the literal sense. And learn more about it and find out about how it works. If you're going to go and move your organization to a country, you need to understand how that country's culture works,
yeah,
and how the cultures within the country work. So engaging people who work locally and understand that is very useful, but you need to too. And there's a huge amount of work done for, I think it was IBM, about the cultural differences. And I'd encourage anyone who's going to do it to understand how that cultural diversity can enrich your organization culturally and commercially, and embrace it. Because it's not a difficult thing to do if you use your eyes, your ears, and a little bit less of that.
That's a message for everybody to take away. Right. Okay, fantastic. So on an aircraft, obviously you're leading from the front, for you to use a better phrase. But there are inevitably times, as you described, where things aren't going quite according to plan, or it might be a technical problem on the plane, and so on. And many leaders might have problems within their businesses or challenges that they're facing. But clearly, you've got to, in your position, keep incredibly calm, in control. How have you done that? How have you trained your brain to be able to, operationally think, these are the processes I need to go through, and this is how I need to lead my team in these circumstances?
Training is a huge element of that. Now, how do you train your brain? It's like we're musicians. Well, I use the word loosely.
Quite.
We pick up musical instruments. If you want to be good at a musical instrument, guitar in my case, piano in Michael's, I think, and the saxophone in my case as well, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time and a lot of repetition to build those neural pathways and those neural connections to make it all work. So we would, in the airline environment, go into the simulator twice a year, each for 2 days, and do all the things that you hope you never ever see in a lifetime. And you do them to the point you come out of the simulator, you go, I can't actually remember what we just done because we've done so much. You have an engine failure and then a hydraulic failure and an electrical failure, and then you'd have to divert somewhere on 3 or 2 or whatever, however many engines. And you're liaising with the cabin, ensuring the crew and the passengers are fully appraised. You're speaking to your operations controllers. You're speaking to air traffic. You're speaking to engineering control. And that is something you're doing in the simulator because you've got this hugely expensive piece of equipment that's providing you with a real life experience, full motion, visual, and all the other good stuff. And you do all this stuff and you have standard operating procedures and processes that work, that are trial tested in the simulator and online. They come back, there's feedback. And the important thing is, and we discussed this with Tim Miller, who is the leader of the Red Arrows, about the Red Arrows used to repeat what they did again and again and again. Then they'd come back and they'd look at a bit of film footage and they would analyze maybe 5 seconds for 15 or 20 minutes and say, look, this is what we did and we need to get that right. And as we discussed with Tim, you practice until you get it right, and then you practice until you can't get it wrong. And when it does go wrong, having that confidence that you've pretty well seen everything, you've got standard operating procedures, you've got a huge team around you, and they've all got a place in the jigsaw puzzle. And remember, the jigsaw puzzle is 1,000 pieces or more, and it's thrown at you pretty quickly. So the first thing on the thing to remember, the FIP-TDODA, which is fly, interrogate and plan, is the FIP part of the procedure, is fly the airplane. Don't fly into the ground as they did with that TriStar in the Everglades trying to change a light bulb on the gear landing indicator. Don't do that. That's a bad thing. So keep flying, keep on course, keep then interrogating the problem, but keep flying the airplane. Find out what it is, and then create a provisional plan. Are we going to divert? What are we going to do? What's the strategy we're going to adopt? And then the T bit, FIP-T, is time. How much time we've got. If you've got a burning engine or a burning airplane, that's a different ball game, or a burning platform in the case of an organization. It's a different ball game to some other less meaningful problem. So establish the time parameters. And then you've got to really determine what the issue is, and then start investigating. Bring the team in. Almost every organization will have a huge team out there, much bigger than they perhaps even realize, and use it. You've got a huge resource there. And very often we have management structures, and again, you and I have discussed it, they're very top-down orientated. Forget it. That is not a method that, in my experience, works particularly well. Yes, someone ultimately has to be responsible for the decision, but if as I had a hydraulic loss of hydraulic system going onto the North Atlantic at one stage, and I had a fuel leak midway across the Atlantic on the way back from Chicago on another, you've got a huge resource there that you can use, and that's not the time you want to be pulling down barriers. The barriers should already be down. And we were discussing this with Richard Nantononi yesterday on the podcast that we were doing, is this sort of flatter gradient and flatter organizational process where information can travel up and down and around the organization. The person on the front line might have the solution to your at the front desk might have the solution to your problem, which might be a simple thing to fix because they're in touch with the customer. Use them, relish them, accept the diversity. You want that diverse menu, you want that diversity of opinion and views, and ultimately that feeds back and allows you to collate and curate the information coming towards you and your leadership team, and will almost certainly, if you take the time, and it's another thing that I think I'll reiterate, in almost every experience in my life, be it music, flying airplanes, engaging with people, putting organizations together, having the time to reflect, taking that time to reflect, almost invariably produces a much, much better result.
Interesting. So I'm blown away by the message right at the start, which is keep flying the plane, because that is, in a nutshell, so many business leaders, CEOs, even department heads, when things aren't quite going so well, they forget the business has got to continue to operate while you deal with all of these things. It's one of the natures of general management. So that's a real thing for people to take away. And
Michael, if you look at the stress arousal curve, if you suddenly create a whole ball of stress around something that might already be stressful, really in a panic or semi-panicked state of mind, that is very contagious. And suddenly you've created a ball of stress where none existed. Whereas if you're confident in your procedures, you're confident in your people, you're confident in your team, you're confident in your standard operating procedures, and you do have contingencies. You think of how many potential failures you can have in an aeroplane with many, many moving parts, including lots of people on board. Medical diversions can come at you from nowhere. Suddenly you're mid-Atlantic, what do you do, where do you go? Or you're halfway down Africa where there's no radar, where are you going to go next? The answer is keep flying the aeroplane, step back, slide your seat back, assess what's going on, look at that overhead panel, take the view, talk to all the people who can help you. And the other bit of advice I'd give to anybody is never, never have a go at the one person who can really help you. And how often have you seen at an airline desk someone banging the desk, and the person behind the desk is a human being, and they're going, the barrier's just coming up here. And of course, every change management and leadership process requires buy-in from the people who can actually affect the change. Remember that. Fly the airplane, look after the people.
Fantastic. Great messages. Okay, so on the podcast that we did, so Barry interviewed me, and you can find that podcast on the Success Consultancy YouTube channel and various other places. You asked me the question about my views on the influence of AI. And we never got to have that conversation the other way around, although I think we did say in the podcast we would do that. So without further ado, what's your view on the influence of AI in leadership and consulting?
This, ladies and gentlemen, is a net volley, and I'll accept it. It's really interesting that if you go up to your GPT and your large language model and type in what can AI do that humans can't, or vice versa, what can humans do that AI can't, AI will come up with a long list of things that it can't do that humans can. And it's reading the room, the political situation, the understanding, the empathy, the politics of the situation, and the intuition should never be underestimated. Again, on another podcast with Mark Blackwell, we were discussing that air traffic, because you're dealing with a human being, air traffic will determine what the mood is on the flight deck, just by the tonality of what's coming down into their ears. Are they stressed? What is the issue here? If you listen to Sully, they basically the conversation was, can you divert to? And the answer is negative. They only had one option in that case. So this human intuition, this understanding, this inference, this empathy has been built up in our 2 million year old brain, which was designed to walk the savannah, and still is. That there have been evolutions, but they're pretty minor. We're fundamentally, how many people are we away from the Romans? About 70 people. A small party in a pub, number of people. If you look at that, so realistically, we've got a brain that has been highly developed for interaction amongst humans and with the other beings on the planet. I mean, that's most of our history. It wasn't about AI or technology, so we have that ability to understand nuance. The stuff that AI may at some point, but certainly not now, may at some point be able to do. But right now, and again, the challenge is, would you fly on an airplane to Hong Kong if it was flown only by AI? And again, it's a question I've asked before, and I certainly wouldn't.
No,
I would fly on an airplane that had AI augmentation, but having someone in the same boat as you, as we are now, or on the same airplane as you with a common and shared destiny, is terribly reassuring if you're sitting in seat 29A, that the people up front really do care about getting home. and that you're not just a blip on a screen somewhere. And AI has got real capabilities that you and I, and I'm sure everybody, is using on a regular basis. And it's fantastic for doing the stuff and speeding up research, understanding, interrogation, and so forth. It's got great capabilities. And in the medical profession, it will be game-changing. There's no doubt about that. But it's a balance, isn't it? And ultimately, who is the ultimate stakeholder in this? And it's not a machine. It's other human beings, other beings on the planet, and the planet itself. And I'm a great believer in the triple bottom line. And people did it sort of, it was given as people, profit, planet. I think it's the other way around. It's planet, look after the planet, people, and then profit will arise out of that. And profit is important because it allows reinvestment. But ultimately, it's about humans. And I have not yet seen a better vector and medium for dealing with human beings than other human beings.
Amazing. Okay, so I always ask the question of all my podcastees. I'm not even sure if that's a word in the dictionary yet.
It's a great word. We'll use it. I will use it.
Podcastees.
You are the podcaster.
Indeed,
I am the E.
Indeed.
Yeah.
What are the highs and the lows of your leadership journey or your career? And it's fascinating what different answers you get because everybody's journey is different. So you've had a wonderful journey through a substantial career. You've now moved into a new market, a new career. So it doesn't matter whether those highs and lows are in either of those sectors. But what would you say, from a highs point of view, was the biggest high in your journey so far?
It's really difficult to pin down a single high. How I'm put together is I'm inquisitive. And so I tend to see setbacks as real learning opportunities. I see success as being something that is actually fundamentally transient. So how do you measure success? Satisfaction is, in my view, helping someone out, helping an organization out. There's a great sense of satisfaction in achieving that. It's nice to achieve goals, but there's nothing more satisfying than learning. I was delighted when I joined Virgin. That was great. And then we were into a sim for 9 weeks or 6 weeks in Miami. And you get into the hard graft. So it's, for me, the real high is the human interaction, making a difference and learning every day and taking learnings and taking a positive from every setback. And there will be setbacks. Everybody has setbacks, and it's taking and going, well, actually, that's a great learning experience. I'll park that. It feels pretty rough right now, but the day after tomorrow, it might save my life.
Interesting. Okay, so what are the lows? Well, you might say you've got no lows either.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? That what are the lows? If you ask me, and it wasn't a planned question in my head anyway. There have been lows, but it's almost, and it sounds like a trite answer, but I guess because my own personality is to add that to the store of knowledge, it's kind of part of the build, the lifetime build of experience and understanding. So honestly couldn't sit and pinpoint one that stands out, because actually they merge into the highs to produce what I hope is a really rewarding life.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so in your business now, in the success consultancy, obviously you're targeting leadership development training, and all of the other bits that you do, but you're also involved in an app, I understand, StratNav app, and some other other businesses. So tell us a little bit about StratNav app.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? How we were talking about how plans never really survive the first encounter with the enemy. StratNav app. When I did my qualification in professional consulting, I had a whole stack of business models, and because of my background, the whole stack of business models, SWOT, PESTLE, etc., ANSOF, BCG Matrix, and so on, business model canvas, and so on. and I thought, well, here we are. Where are they in a integrated in an integrated form? And I couldn't find it anywhere. People were doing it on PowerPoints and spreadsheets and Word, and I went, "This is madness. This is 2022. We should be doing this." And it was only through an introduction to a strategy discussion group, chat group, run by Chris Fox's StratNav app, that I found StratNav app, and I went, "Well, this is it. This is it." And and basically, it's got a Genius module and it's all integrated. So it integrates all of the models. And so from a consulting point of view, I would probably consider stopping consultancy if I didn't have StratNav app, because it is such a valuable, it allows me to deliver so much more to the client, because we've got a business model that they can take away with them, they can collaborate with them. It's got everything. It's got their files. It's got all of the meetings captured. It's got all of the models built. You can go in. It's a living, breathing model of the organization that can be changed, because strategy is not a once a year event, then put it in the drawer that nobody then carries out and executes on. It's a daily thing. It's, as I keep saying, it's like QuickBooks, but for consultants, really. And so it's getting that message out to consultants like you and I, that StratNav app gives us the capability to deliver so much more value to the client. Mm-hmm. And in fact, we've used it, and I'll just get a plug in here, as you did shamelessly during our podcast, Michael. So in addition to the success consultancy, we've just launched Stratus 12, where we've brought in a former high profile partners from the airline industry, CEOs of airlines, directors of flight operations from airlines, and me with my actually operational background and also my industrial background and my consulting background. And we've built all of that modeling through StratNav app for Stratus 12. And it's designed, we're going to be looking after second and third tier airlines, or airlines. And that is kind of the area that we're focusing on, airlines that aren't going to be going out and necessarily engaging the top 20, the big 20 consultancies, but people are looking for organizations who can go in like a SWAT team, who have got real hands-on operational experience. So we've got airline CEOs, as I say, director of flight operations, and so forth, that will allow us to go identify problems and provide real solutions to those problems. And the other thing we're going to be looking at as one of our client segments is owners' representation for people who want to acquire, operate corporate aircraft, wide body corporate aircraft, because we've got a lot of experience there. So we've got this huge pool of intellectual property that the partners bring together. And so Stratus 12 will be rolling out at a venue near you pretty soon. That venue is going to be linked in. So keep your eyes on it. We're just about to roll it out, and that'll be really exciting, because it will allow us to go in and provide that real depth of experience to airlines who really, I mean, let's be fair, the airline industry is a very low margin industry. A lot of airlines struggle. And to be able to go in and make simple solutions, fleet simplification, organizational simplification, and operational simplification, really important. But it's very easy when airlines develop that they kind of go down rabbit holes that perhaps they shouldn't, and it's bringing that back. And Michael, you know better than anybody, it's about keep it simple, isn't it? Keep the model simple. Don't have too many moving parts. Make sure everybody understands the organizational strategy. Work with the team, and basically you're there as the leader to ensure that the obstacles to the team achieving the goal and the strategy are removed.
Fantastic. Well, we'll keep an eye out for that on LinkedIn, and I'm sure other channels as well. Fascinating stuff. So you've had two very distinct, I suppose, careers. So I always ask towards the end of the podcast, what is your message for viewers and listeners? but that message from you could well be a message of lessons from your aviation, your flight deck time, and from your consultancy. But I'll leave it up to you to decide. But what would be your message to viewers and listeners on their leadership journey?
Keep learning every day. Surround yourself with the best people you possibly can. Keep the vision. Make sure that it's a compelling vision. Your strategic vision is one that engages people with emotions and that you bring people with you. Communicate it frequently. Understand the change process. The only permanent thing in life is change. If you understand the process, we've got the people change leadership process, and it's actually the people. It's the acronym is people. So it's people-centric leadership, and then empowerment to empower that team that you're leading, and then optimize your organization. And that includes having a dual organizational structure where you have an innovation network sitting alongside the traditional hierarchy. So the innovation network is always innovating, it's always there, it's always working, and it's populated by volunteers from your own organization. HMS, which did this very successfully under the Cotter program, had 65% of their people at any given time in the innovation network. So that optimization. And then have a purpose-driven vision, which is basically what I've just said a little earlier on. Make sure that there is a purpose, but it's a higher purpose. It's not about the P&L. It's about something higher that really engages your people. And it's going to vary from organization to organization. So think about that. Something that engages your people to get behind it. And then learn. As you go through, it's learn, build, measure, learn, pivot. Eric Rees, I think, give credit to, and Nick Himovitz, who put the learn at the beginning as well. So learn as you go along, and as you're learning, also celebrate wins. And it's so important. You look at any football stadium. You go to look at Saints and or any event. People are celebrating wins, and your organisation need to too, and have those milestones, and then take the time to embed it in the organisation. Otherwise, it's a waste of everybody's time. So you've done all the right stuff. You've got the people-centric leadership. You've got the optimization and the empowerment. But unless you embed it, it's a pointless exercise. And it's all about maintaining that engagement, allowing the cultural change to take effect, because you can't change culture by email or overnight. And when you've done that and you understand that, and we train for it, we've got a training program for that, for the People Change Leadership Framework, but we can also work with organizations to work them through that. So training, understand that there are processes that make change work, and that change is constant. So it's like organization muscle. You're building this organizational muscle to allow you to constantly deal with accelerating change. And getting back to your AI point, that's going to come at everybody much more rapidly. So you need to do it and keep that training and keep everybody on side. And most of all, remember, it's about people.
It's all about the people, as we've said many, many, many times. Some fantastic takeaways there. If people wanted to contact you or look at your business or like what you've heard, what they've heard today from your consulting side, how would they do that?
The website is Success, that's spelled SIXSESS.org. It's not a play on words. It's actually what we consider the successes of a successful organization.
Okay.
That it must be simple, straightforward, that is honest, satisfying. You've got to want to do it. Really important. Scalable, sustainable, both in the environmental sense, but in the economic sense, and then ultimately sellable to the clients, the stakeholders, the investors, and possibly at the exit. So that's what Success stands for. So success.org, SIXSESS.org, or they can call me. Do people still use a phone? Please do. Our telephone number's on the website, and I'll look forward to your calls.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Barry Eustance. That's been absolutely brilliant, fantastic, insightful podcast. If you liked what you heard today, then you can look at our podcast on YouTube, on Spotify, and on Apple, meeting amazing leaders on their journey to success. There's some wonderful podcasts on there already, and we've got some amazing stuff coming up. But for now, from me, Michael Glanville, from Michael's at Glanville Executive Coaching, from Barry Eustace at Success Consultancy.
Barry Eustance. There is an N.
There's an N in there.
There's an N in there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you too for viewing and listening. We'll see you in the next podcast.
Thank you, Michael. It's been a great pleasure.
You're very welcome.